Well, everyone, the latest live letter has happened. This time, they were way more focused on the long-term health of FF14 and basically what we can expect on a macro scale. And you know what? It's pretty hype, so let's just get stuck in. What really stood out to me was just the openness that this team has. It's kind of crazy compared to the rest of the industry. So they announced that they're slowing their patch cadence. Only slightly though. Basically, there's going to be a new patch every 4 months instead of every 3.5 months. And then also they're adding in an extra week of slack for summer and winter, which all makes sense so that their team is happy and healthy and can actually, do the game for the next 10 years. That said, of course, it's not like they're doing less content. I mean, the patch word counts and cutscene lengths have definitely increased over the years, and sure, there was like a little bit of a knock on things with, Shadowbringers and COVID and all, but I think generally people are happy. And I'd say if this means they can make a better game in the long run, then that is absolutely brilliant and ideal. And I think really this whole thing just shows us just how damn tightly they plan out this game. Because the amount of confidence that they show in their schedule is insane. Like, they talk about this stuff way further out than really most developers seem to. It makes me think they must be quite ruthless when it comes to, like, cutting down unknowns and, having a reasonable but not too much experimentation. I guess that could sound like a bad thing, but you know what I mean. It's, like, clearly a very tight ship they run over there. Anyway, when delays do happen, this is a team that's pretty damn good at explaining why. The community knows that. We actually feel taken care of. They're open, they're honest, and I think that means that they probably feel confident enough to give us the details because it feels like more of a two-way street, which means they know that they can feel, well, if something doesn't go to plan, they can tell us and the relationship will be okay. I think that's just important. Graphics then, we are getting a graphical overhaul in the next expansion. Fairly major actually, and I think extremely important, more so than entrenched players may think, because I know of so many people who struggled to overcome the uneven presentation of this game. Like, seriously, I know loads of people who bounced off or just kind of didn't want to engage with FF because of that. Now, of course, fire on a G-shade and you're most of the way there, but I mean, yeah, like their anti-aliasing implementation is a bit pants. They're in a pretty challenging spot overall because they have a sort of more photoreal style, right, in their rendering and such, but they're clearly running in an old engine that had to be put together very rapidly following the abandonment of Crystal tools whenever they were making 2.0. Well, I mean, who knows about things like color grading, but at least it seems the basics are going to get a lot better. Now, lighting is important. Lighting is important for faces in real life, so whenever things look off in a game, like they really do look off, right? If you light everything flat and you have things almost looking unlit, then it just messes things up. So we're actually going to get far more detailed lighting, especially like in and around our characters, and that's great because that means you'll better see your character's facial structure. And I think that's really important because honestly, with my G-shades on, some cutscenes literally hit harder because you can more properly see the work the animators have put in because of the lighting actually highlighting detail in faces. Now, we're also seeing a texture res increase for hair, skin, armor materials, perhaps better material shaders, also an increased limit on scene lighting, which is going to give their artists just a lot more freedom to play around, which of course is great because environmental lighting means you can actually see the detail in the environment. A great example, Halo Infinite's disastrous E3 demo was made so much worse by flat lighting that masked the detail that was there in the world. A perfect example of the sort of thing the FF14 team want to get away from. That's a mighty challenge for an MMO. Now, their demo scenes, I will say, definitely, they looked very compelling, though do note that Yoshida was very clear about how he had the team make up examples to highlight changes, so some of these things might not be the actual art direction that the team will go for, it's more just to highlight the new tools. Also, the world is getting love, even more love than I've already mentioned. There seems to be material work going on, a revamped foliage system that is a tremendous leap forward, and also increased object density. So that just means, man, the game is going to look better once these changes are in, but that's not going to be until the next expansion, and when they do come, they're not going to all come at once. So basically expect the expansion to launch with player character updates, probably the likes of the Scions all being updated and those major characters, the new zones of course being up to speed, but as for the rest, they'll be doing that as sort of fast as they can reasonably. The likes of a character, say, Teleji, he's going to be updated because he's just made of player character customization bits. But more custom characters like maybe Ilberd, those are not going to be covered in the first pass. So it's going to take time. We were warned that there may be some up-to-date characters, some old characters. It might look a little bit odd for a time, but I think it's worth it. Especially the lighting and the stuff for the characters. That's going to elevate their cinematic game to a new level. I'd say if I was going to be cheeky and have one request, I'd say split cloak options for tail characters, because that seems a lot better than doing tail physics and stuff, but that would be loads more work still. Overall, I'll just say I'm happy to see them reinvest in the fundamentals of this game. It's the sort of thing that doesn't really serve us right now in terms of quantity of content we get, but I think it's undoubtedly important for the game's long-term health. Speaking of which, trusts. This sure is interesting. So they're expanding the trust system backward to legacy content, and this is all in the name of making FF14 more solo-friendly, basically so that people who like other FF games but don't touch the MMOs feel like they can go in and play through the MSQ. Now, I do get the suspicion here, but to be fair, the trust system is not a bad learning environment. I mean, you could even say the trust system can sometimes, at least if you're a DPS, can punish you more, because you can't get rezzed when you die, you have to restart the fight. Anyway, they're going to start with 2.0 in patch 6.1, then ARR patch dungeons and some Heavensward for 6.2. They're going to finish Heavensward trust implementation by 6.3, and then Stormblood will be done over Endwalker's final two patches, with 7.0 bringing trial compatibility. Now, I assume this means that Horsefont could be tanking in the vault. That's an example of this being strong for the narrative, so I'm pretty happy. Their content brief looked strong, though all of the overhaul work that they've got to do will probably split some efforts. Now, the main news is that our next live letter is a deep dive in 6.1, and that's very soon in March. Until then, though, we have learnt plenty. So, 6.1, many thought it was going to have island sanctuaries. It's not, but there is a lot. So, Hildebrand, back. I really need to do Hildebrand, so I can get why everyone's really excited by this. Tataru, the best Scion, she's got a quest line. There's also the Thavnir Beast Tribe quests as well. Then we are going to be getting the first wing of the new Alliance raid. We'll be getting the Crystalline Conflict PvP mode, and actually more stuff, because the Dragon Song Ultimate is coming, as is the Unreal Trial for Ultima's Bane. And then, of course, all that aforementioned trust stuff. And then for the crafters, the twins' mum is going to be your first custom delivery. So you'll get to dress her up. I think some people on the internet will enjoy this. What else? Well, there's also the Ishgard Housing District, Hrothgar Hair, and the Calling Card UI. There could be more stuff, of course. I mean, there's still the Extreme for the third trial. We'll have to see. There'll be the 6.1 deep dive soon. 6.2 then, Island Sanctuaries, which I am really excited for. There's also a new type of dungeon coming to the game called a Criterion Dungeon. Now, this is a type of dungeon that scales and also seems to be intended to fill that niche of harder 4-player content. Sounds pretty great to me. Then also 6.2, they didn't mention it, but I mean, we're almost entirely sure the next Pandemonium wing is coming then. 6.3, well, I assume that, with 6.1 bringing in the first wing of the Alliance raid, that 6.3 will bring in the second wing. They also then mentioned a new deep dungeon, our next ultimate, and more Island Sanctuary updates, which just really makes me think that this sanctuary is going to be fairly big and added to, which is really exciting. Then in the 0.4 and 0.5 patches, they're going to have even more Sanctuary updates, 2 more of these Criterion dungeons, and of course, the end of Pandemonium, the end of the Alliance Raid series, perhaps more trials, but at this stage, we'll just have to wait and see what they've got cooking. Overall, though, pretty neat. I'll say for what I care about the most, this just means there'll be a nice sort of drip feed of the raiding content to dabble in along the way, and then the islands in 6.2, which I'm really excited to just dive really deep into. Now, of course, the islands are probably going to be late August, maybe early autumn, in terms of when they come out for the patch cadence. Okay, so thoughts and opinions time. There was a bit of a Q&A. It was very spoilery though, so I'm not really sure if it's the sort of thing I want to dive into. Yeah, I don't know, spoilers, but let's not do them. Long term, they're focusing on the game being healthy, and I think that is just fantastic. That means that while not all decisions here are going to be optimal for the content quantity of Endwalker, I think it means the team, like, they just know they're onto a winner of a game, and they need to just reinvest in the fundamentals so that, like, they can... I mean, they're already coming out of COVID screaming, you know, super powerful. This is just going to make that more so, and that is cool. Plus, I'm just damn excited to see what our characters are going to look like. I mean, they did say that, like, your character's going to look like your character, but, I mean, take yourself and, you know, look in front of a mirror and imagine you're, like, lit completely flatly, like you're on the set of Star Trek, you know? Your face will look one way. Then, you know, try to light yourself all dramatically, and, you know, the shape of your face will, you know, it'll be highlighted by the light and the shadow, and that'll make your character more defined, right? And I just remember, you know, toggling my G-Shade preset on and off during cutscenes, and it's like, oh shit, I can see these facial animations more with my G-Shade on. And that's just going to make the storytelling better, it's going to make the game look better, it's going to free up their artists to do more, so that's all real hype. I also want to talk about communication, because as a WoW player, I've got to tell you, this is insane. I mean, I know the P in Yoshi P stands for producer. Some people think it stands for primal. I think it actually stands for please understand. Because you can just be bloody open with us. I mean, obviously not on everything, but could you imagine a Blizzard Entertainment that just does multiple, like 5 or, you know, I mean, was it 14 the longest live letter? But, you know, these big live streams where they actually hang out, read chat, you know, instead of just giving us like a 12-minute marketing brief for the WoW patch 9.2, why is that not like a 4-hour live stream where we get to chew the fat on it? There's a Q&A. The developers are actually, you know, seeing chat, stuff like that. I don't know. It would be a superpower if they were able to do it. And it's such a good format because they were able to respond to chat and clarify, you know, their points. If people had, you know, issues or questions, reading chat, they could respond to them and reassure people in real time, right? It's just such a great format. And the thing is, it's not polished. It doesn't come across as marketing because, look, if you wanted this to be perfectly polished and perfectly marketed, you'd probably do it differently. Right? But no, it's sure like there's a little bit of jank, there's a little bit of you know, it's not like the most sort of in-depth, super high polished production, but it's quite raw, and that's in a way that's nice. I mean, the one thing they say in this whole, you know, biz that I do, YouTube and stuff, is, you know, it's texture, not polish. Right? Like, polish can be really fucking boring, but there's texture here, and that just means that dev relationship can exist. And there are so many lessons for so much more of the industry to learn from these guys. And it is just that funny thing, because traditionally you think about it, you know, the Japanese companies, and you sort of think, oh, they're pretty old school in how they do things. And, you know, no, here they are leading the charge in how to actually communicate in a live game. Now, as for what's next for me in FF14, basically I've been not screwed over, I've actively jumped into this, but it has been MMO Hell Month. Right? There's so many games coming out, so many updates and patches. So what I need to do in FF14, what I want to do is I want to earn some more gil, I want to get stuck into housing, customize my apartment and RFC estate, so that I'm just like used to doing that and good at doing that by the time the islands come. Crafting, I was dabbling into alchemy, and let me tell you, I mean, I was glowing like a kid when I just was like, oh my god, I have stats in my crafting gear. And I know macros and rotations, whatever, but I just think it's a cool design. Baja and Omega. Those, I mean, just absolutely, and I think I need to lose a whole bunch of time with the Golden Saucer. So suffice to say, there's plenty to tide me over to the next patch. And one of the nice things about FF14 is, you know, it's like I haven't really played much the last 2 weeks. That's fine, I don't care. I love the game and I'm happy. I don't feel like I'm going to be screwed over when I come back. And that's just the beautiful thing about a game that respects your time, is, you know, it isn't packed full of FOMO, right? You know, it's like my last memories are happy, and that means whenever I come back, I'll just be in this nice curve of, you know, oh, happy, versus those times when, you know, you maybe leave a game out of frustration because of its mechanics. So, look, there you go. That's what's up for the, well, I suppose technically the next 10 years of FF14. You know, story-wise and all of that. I mean, they did drop some hints of, you know, hey, whenever we mention a location, often we go to those locations. So if you think about what I believe was it Emmett who mentioned that other place, so there could be something there. But really, we need to see the MSQ of like 6.1, 2, 3, and 4, and I suppose 5 too, to really get a feeling of where the story's going next. There's certainly a lot of interesting ways it could go, though. And I still wonder, they didn't really show us much of a certain character becoming a Reaper, so I have to wonder what that means. Anyway, have a wonderful day. I hope you found this interesting. Let me know what you're thinking about the game, and I'll see you next time.